Hey, how's it going, everyone? Happy Mandalorian Friday. We're back here for the season 2 finale of The Mandalorian. Oh boy, we got a lot to break down. And we love doing this every Friday over here on the FilmSpeak channel. And so if this is your first time joining us, we have a whole playlist dedicated to Mandalorian recap, so you can go check that out over there if that interests you. But my name is Griffin Schiller. I'm the host of the FilmSpeak channel, and over here on the channel, we like to say this is the place where the conversation continues after the credits. And of course, if you'd love to be a part of that conversation and talk about the Mandalorian, movies, and all sorts of great stuff, you're definitely in the right place. So consider subscribing to the channel. And yes, we're going to be talking about The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 8, or Chapter 16. The Rescue, I believe, is what it's called. And before we get started, feel free to jump down in the comment section and let me know your thoughts and opinions on today's episode. This is a spoiler discussion, so spoilers are permitted in the comment section or in the live chat and all that good stuff. Tried not to put the spoilers in the thumbnail, but this is going to be a very, very in-depth spoilery conversation. So you all have been warned, but I don't do these alone. I am joined by the great Elliott from Movie Files, as always. Elliott, how's it going, man?
It's going good, man. Let's jump right into Grogu when he rips off the head of Moff Gideon and there was blood. I mean, it was crazy, man. But no, man,
it was gnarly.
This is exciting, man. The season finale. Peyton Reed trying to do his side of a redemption story from that chapter 10, The Passenger. But yeah, really excited to break it down, man. I'm really excited to get your thoughts on Mr. Skywalker making an appearance.
He's dropping it right now. No hesitation. He's just going for it, going for the jugular.
Right for the jugular.
Yeah. So let's just get into it, man. So Luke Skywalker fucking returns in The Mandalorian. I mean, I think it's something that we all knew was going to happen in some capacity or another. Yeah. I think it's just like a matter of how it happened, and I don't know. I think it's going to be a little bit more divisive than people think. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of people who like it. There's going to be people who don't like it. And that's really where it's going to be. I mean, I don't know. Where do you kind of fall on the conversation arena there?
So we spoke about it with the Robert Rodriguez episode with the Grogu making the call, who could be the Jedi. And, we all speculated, could it be Luke? Would they have the balls to bring Luke Skywalker back? Would they want to bring the Skywalker into the story, since we know everything's so detached from they're trying to detach himself and be something new. But I think narratively speaking, it kind of makes sense that the most powerful Jedi, there's not a lot of Jedi out there. The most powerful Jedi would get that call, and it's right. Luke, man. I think the only issue with that moment for me is just the visuals. The CGI was just the uncanny valley.
It was garbage.
It was bad. Been, and I don't want to blame it on it's a TV show, because that mold's been broken. The Mandalorian is one of the most best productions we've seen, movie or TV. So it goes without excuse. It could have been a behind the shot, shot of Luke Skywalker from behind, leave his cloak up, or, the fan casting of Sebastian Stan. But that's like my only issue that I have with that, Luke making an appearance. But I think narratively speaking, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it like, and this is what I've been saying to people that I have been talking to about, because I guess overall, we should probably do overall thoughts first before we get into Luke specifically. But you are landing more on the positive side of this episode, correct?
Yes.
To no one's surprise, almost wound up disliking this episode a lot, but it won me over in the end because of that final interaction between Din and Grogu. But yeah, I will say, I think Peyton Reed redeemed himself. It was a really well-directed episode. He did a great job of balancing character and spectacle, I think. But it all kind of comes down to the appearance of Luke Skywalker, and that's either going to make or break a lot of things for people. And so for me, I just kind of had to take a step back and realize that this is just what Star Wars is going to be from now on. It's going to be cheap nostalgia ploys that plays for the fans. It almost that the return felt fan fiction-y. I mean, it was just like, I knew that they were probably going to bring back Luke, but if you're going to bring him back, I just do it in a way that's like tasteful. Maybe have Din drop him off wherever Luke Skywalker is. Like maybe like Baby Yoda, like force Skyped with Luke or whatever, and like learned his location, and then like he has to go drop him off, and like we don't necessarily see his face. I think sometimes not showing things is better, and it's a more nuanced way of doing it. And so it was like I was prepared for Luke to make an appearance. The way he did it, I just didn't.
Now, is it the lead up to it? Because I think for me, that moment of seeing Luke in his prime, which we haven't seen that, right? It reminded me a lot of the Darth Vader scene that we get in Rogue One, seeing him in his prime, and again playing off nostalgia. Hayden Christensen's coming back in the Obi show. It is kind of the way of Star Wars, but was it the execution that didn't work for you? The whole this idea of Luke coming, or like what's the
it's a little bit of both. It's execution, and it's not being able to move away from certain characters. I think the showing him kicking ass, like this is also another thing that really irritates me. And it was the same reason why I didn't like the Boba Fett episode. They were more concerned with the visual, with the spectacle, with what can this character do in action that makes us go, oh my God, as opposed to somber moments, character moments, and whatnot. And I feel like with this, with the arrival of Luke Skywalker almost undercuts everything that they have been doing in this episode. It undermines, like, it took away from the emotional weight of what was happening, because we're all concerned with, oh my God, that's Luke Skywalker. Oh my God, that's really bad CGI on his face. And so we're losing focus of what is important here in the episode. And honest to God, you know what saves it? Pedro Pascal's performance. Him interacting with Baby Yoda as they say goodbye was like, that brought a tear to my eye. That did. And then, R2 shows up, and I'm like, dude, come on. Like, what is...
That's the only moment. And like, I love the passion. I love that Griffin's on the dark side, ladies and gentlemen. He did not like Luke Skywalker coming up, but that was the one moment I was like, R2-D2 coming in was a little bit, kind of fan service. But I don't know, man. I just got goosebumps seeing Luke Skywalker popping up in that moment. Again, it is very heavily influenced in fan service, but I just think it was just so... Visually speaking, like you said, the visuals got to me. I was literally watching this. I've seen the episode twice now, both times, just seeing the X-Wing, Lucas score, mixing in some of the original John Williams of Luke Skywalker. To me, it just really hit me, man. Just like from a fan of Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, I think this was much better of Luke than Last Jedi, which I enjoy that film, but I just love seeing Luke in his prime, just slicing and dicing some dark stormtroopers, man. But I can see the other side of the fence of where you're coming from, man. But I just loved it, man. I was eating up that nostalgia. I was eating up all that fandom service, man. I really enjoyed that moment.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's like I've seen a lot of people's like, oh, like father, like son, comparing the Darth Vader moment to the Luke Skywalker moment. And it's not a one-for-one comparison. I mean, it doesn't even like seeing Vader in his prime and seeing him strike down people with anger and vitriol and just like aggression, like that makes sense because that's Anakin Skywalker. Seeing Luke do that just doesn't, it doesn't give me the same feeling, I guess, and it also just, I don't know. I just felt like there were so many different ways that they could have gone about it. And if they wanted to bring back Luke, like there are like less action-centric ways to do it that serves your characters that the show is about, and doesn't, take away from their moment, from what they're doing. I mean, I thought we were supposed to move away from the Skywalkers, right? Star Wars is more than Luke Skywalker and everything. And I feel like this episode showed that, like he's always going to be brought back in some capacity. And I understand why people would like it. It's great seeing him back. It's great that Mark Hamill voiced him and everything. And I don't know what they did with the de-aging, if that was actually Mark Hamill acting or whatever. It didn't look like him. But that was the other thing. When you see him show up and you look at his face and you see the it looked like he was out of Battlefront 2, man. It looked like he was in a video game. And then when you see him interacting with Baby Yoda, it's like, what? I don't know. It really, I really struggled with it because I was just like, you can't help yourselves, can you? You had to do that.
Right there, dangling in their face, man. Just like Grogu and Baby Yoda, the marketing. This, I hear where you're coming from, and I hear it. But again, that moment to me was just so. It just felt like a a happy, fun, action-centric Luke Skywalker ripping some the troopers apart. And I do want to say it didn't take me out of the emotional moment, because once we get to Grogu saying goodbye to Din and all that, it hit me in the feels as well. But again, man,
Yeah.
seeing it twice, it just gets me. Maybe later on, after I watch the season as a cinematic movie, maybe it doesn't hit me the way it does now. But I really enjoyed that moment, man. But I guess even before we even got to that moment, prior to Luke Skywalker, what was your thoughts on, I guess, just like open up the episode with Slave One and all that stuff?
I want to point this out. What are we? And I think this is a testament to where my feelings are coming from.
Yeah.
When the episode is all said and done, what are we talking about? We're talking about the reappearance of Luke Skywalker. We're not talking about Baby Yoda. We're not talking about Din. We're not talking about all the crazy stuff that was happening. The Mandalorian conflict. Oh my God, that was phenomenal. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Luke Skywalker because he almost came in there and stole the entire series finale from our characters. It's
the in-game effect, right? We all talk about the last 45 to an hour of in-game versus the others, the character development and stuff like that. It's the popcorn talk. This is we just saw the episode today. It's the water cooler talk, but digesting the episode. I still think the episode as a whole, which we can, get into it now. I still think, so besides the Luke Skywalker part, the moment where, we see Moff Gideon and, Din fighting hand to hand with that stuff to me was so great. But even like I said, just going from the beginning of the episode, what did you think about just like the opening of those two characters in the with Dr. Pershing and his engineer clone?
Yeah, I dug that. And I thought that was a nice way of like just sort of expanding the mythology. And I loved the Mandalorian interaction between Boba and Bo-Katan and Sasha Banks's character and all that, and how it's like, I thought that was another really interesting look at, Bo-Katan and her followers and everything, and how they sort of see themselves, right? Like they look down on the clones as being inferior because they're not from a genetically pure bloodline. They've been modified and everything. And, Boba obviously has been struggling with that his whole life, and he took offense to that. That was the first moment that I saw a real piece of character out of Boba Fett. And I was like,
we'll be getting more of that, my friend.
I was like, give me more of that. That's interesting. The Mandalorian conflict, with Din being in the center of this, of being like this rock, and he's, Boba has like pledged his allegiance to him. And then like, obviously Bo-Katan wants that darksaber because she wants to take her rightful place as ruling Mandalore. And then obviously, what happens later in the episode when Moff Gideon tricks Din into beating him, and then he has the darksaber, and Bo's like looking at him, and there's some double crossing going on there. I was just like, this is the future of the show. And I love it because now we're focused on, the implications for the planet of Mandalore. Bo-Katan isn't in a position of power now. So how is she going to react? I was almost waiting for a second showdown there between him and Bo-Katan, but I think they're going to save that for season 3 or something like that. But that was the best part of this entire episode. Like that was, I love that.
That was some really good stuff, man. And actually kind of a question for you, when going back to that moment where they're at the bar or whatnot, and we see Boba say, I never said I was a Mandalorian, but 2 weeks ago, he's, his coding, and he said that he does feel like he's a Mandalorian. I guess that's the struggle of the book of Boba Fett, that we can kind of really dive into his position. Is he a Mandalorian? Is he not? But like you just mentioned, Katie Sackhoff in the role, she's so great.
She's great.
I don't know if they explained what happened to the Axe character. I don't know if he died, if he's off on a side mission, if we'll see him back. But I thought Sasha Banks in that moment when they're fighting in the bar was really great. And like you said, I think the moments of the Mandalorian, I think this is the show moving forward. I think, if I am to assume season 3, again, not to dive more into the Luke Skywalker stuff, but Grogu's gone now. So now this is maybe the stuff that you're looking forward to in season 3 is, the Mandalore, who's gonna be the leader, just more of the character study. But I really did love all that stuff that we got with the Mandalorians, especially seeing Bo-Katan, seeing that darksaber getting wielded by Din was really great.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the future of the show, that's I mean, and it makes sense because the name of the show is The Mandalorian, and so they could sort of like, focus on a group of these characters, and like they've got their Rangers of the New Republic, spin-off series happening, and so they don't need to necessarily bring them in here. The conflict can be on Mandalore and those characters, and so that's what's really exciting to me is I guess what's going to come next for these characters. Din, now that he's sort of fulfilled his purpose and like he had to let go of the one, person sort of like giving him purpose and like finding his humanity and stuff like that. Like, how is that going to affect him going forward? Obviously, he's not going to just like sit there and like let Bo-Katan kill him, but like that's where the interesting stuff is going to sort of arise in that conflict there. And obviously, she doesn't want to just take it because it's not the saber doesn't give you power; it's the legend that gives you power, which that right there was a beautiful callback to the themes and motifs explored in The Last Jedi about the downfall of the Jedi being their hubris and the legend, the legend of Luke Skywalker and stuff like that. And it's really ironic that they should then talk about that and then go to a scene where we see the legend of Luke Skywalker, and it's not, it's just it kind of contradicted itself there a little bit. So I don't know. It just for me personally, but I don't like what do you think is going to happen with Bo-Katan going forward?
Well, so two big things to me too with this episode is now that they have in their possession Dr. Pershing, who again I think this particular season, whether it be Bill Burr as Mayfield and other characters that we got, this kind of humanizing characters that we assume one thing. So to me, the Dr. Pershing character really plays into what's Matt Mikkelsen's character name in Rogue One right now? I'm forgetting his name.
Galen Erso.
Galen Erso. That's how Dr. Pershing kind of looks to me. Where we saw him in season 1. He didn't want to kill the child. We see this in this episode where he's saying, he pretty much gives them the layout of Moff Gideon's ship. It kind of goes, and I hope that we explore that again, even with Moff Gideon. Can we get his side of like the Empire? This universe, this galaxy needs order. I would really love to dive deep into those two characters, Dr. Pershing and Moff Gideon, and see what Bo-Katan does with them. She's really wants to kill a Moff, as she says multiple times in this episode. But again, is her focus going to be on getting that saber? And I want to ask you, because I know you've seen a lot more episodes of Clone Wars and Rebels than me, but I was doing some saw online, like in regards to Sabine literally handing the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, and that wasn't necessarily a fight or a battle. She literally handed her the Darksaber. Is that something that we can see? Because we didn't see, Moff Gideon get killed for the saber getting switched over to Din. So is that something that we can maybe address again? Him just saying, I don't want the saber, take it, or just he falls flat over and pretend like they battle each other to get that sword. So I wonder if that's something to explore in further seasons in regards to that wielding and who holds the Darksaber.
Yeah, I don't know. It is interesting to think about. But what my mind keeps going back to is you saying, earlier in the season, you're like, what is Mando now going to be in a position to lead? Is he going to take the Darksaber and kind of take Bo-Katan's position? And then obviously there'll be a little bit of a obviously a little bit of turmoil there. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of just interesting things that are going to sort of come about because of the fact that Mando now has the Darksaber and everything. I'm hoping that this might hint at a return for Sabine, because she hasn't been there in a while, ever since Rebels, and I feel like her involvement in the story would actually be kind of necessary. Just given the fact that Mandalore is sort of being returned to its former glory and everything. Yeah. But I don't know. That to me was interesting. I think going forward with this show, and maybe this is a good way to kind of segue into the post-credit scene where it's like Boba Fett and they're like the book of Boba Fett. Yeah. I've got kind of two theories here that I'm really fascinated by. One, does that mean that the next season of The Mandalorian is going to be all focused on Boba Fett, and that's going to open up the book of Boba Fett? Or is the book of Boba Fett going to be its own series, and like we'll still get Mandalorian season 3, and then we'll also get Boba Fett? I don't know. To me, like that, it could be interesting to have these individual seasons focused on different Mandalorians, and then kind of after one of those seasons, we cut back to the main story
To
with
another,
Din
yeah.
and everything like that. So, I don't know. What do you think is going to happen there?
That's an interesting thought, and it's called the Book of Boba Fett, and we know that all of the Mandalorian thus far has been chapters. So this is, again, like you just alluded to, is it just a spin-off miniseries, limited series, 4 episodes leading into? Because again, going back to the investors meeting last week, they really quietly and kind of quickly glanced over, we'll be back next year with the Mandalorian season 3 in December or Christmas of next year. Do we lead up into the Mandalorian season 3, or is season 3 of the Mandalorian literally Boba Fett's story, or is it a small mini Disney Plus movie, just a 1.5 hour, 2 hour movie going back to Josh Trank and the script that was out there for a while for Boba Fett? Is it a movie leading into the Mandalorian season 3? So there's a lot of, because I don't think any news has been announced yet of officially what this project is.
Yeah, I just if season 3 is going to focus on Boba Fett, I like it in concept, but I don't like it just because I don't think Boba Fett. I think Boba Fett works best as a secondary character. I don't really care what's going to go on with that journey, and right now I'm more invested in what's happening with Din and the future of Mandalore. And if we have to take if we have to take a detour in order to get back to that, that's going to be a little disappointing to me. So I kind of hope it's a Mandalorian season 3 and then the Boba Fett spinoff. But I think what's actually going to happen is the Boba Fett show, the series or whatever that they've been shooting, is actually going to be season 3 of the Mandalorian. Which, again, I haven't been crazy about Boba Fett or just like having him get his own series and whatnot. But I don't know if that's what happens with the show. Maybe there will be something interesting to come out of it. I don't know. Which direction would you sort of prefer?
Look, man, your favorite character, Patty Motto, since Boba Fett is the new ruler of Tatooine, I would love to get her in the mix, right? No, but I think, like you just mentioned, with Frennick being in the mix, I do love that shot of Boba Fett being on the throne. That shot to me was like really awesome. But in regards to just, I think you hit the nail on the head where it comes to, I think we're going to surround, if it is a flat out Boba Fett series, they're going to surround him with some more interesting characters, to say the least, whether it be Frennick, whether it be other supporting characters with Tatooine, and him being the ruler of Tatooine will be really interesting to see. But again, I thought that was a really interesting way to keep some things behind the scenes that they didn't announce that last week and gave us a little bit of a little stinger at the end while we get the incredible Luca score. So again, I would imagine the next few weeks we'll get maybe confirmation on film series. Is it just flat out season 3 of Mandalorian? Is it something in itself in entirety? But again, the TV of Star Wars, or to say the future of Star Wars, is without a doubt on television.
Yeah, no, I mean, like the investor meeting really solidified that. We're getting like 10 fucking spinoff series and whatnot. Insane. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see sort of what happens there. I guess the next logical place to go is just like the future of Grogu. Now that Luke has taken him, and we're assuming that he's going to train him, this is probably going to start the beginning of the the Jedi training camp, for lack of a better phrase, that he started with Kylo Ren. And so, does this mean that like Kylo kills Baby Yoda, or is it like too far? There's like a lot of things to sort of think about when we think of the fact that Luke is now going to train Grogu. So what do you think happens with him? Is this the last we see of him, or do you think that we get him, he pops up later down the line, maybe in like a season 5 or something like that?
No, that's a great question. I was definitely thinking about that in regards to, do we get a time jump? When we see Din again, Grogu's going to be a fully trained Jedi 5 years, 10 years down the road. Because again, I guess just playing out the timeline, when we see Kylo Ren and we learn what happened in The Last Jedi, I assume that was probably 25 years, 30 years from this current timeline, being 5 years removed from Return of the Jedi. So it could be Grogu, 25 years of training, under Luke Skywalker, goes back to Din and we follow up on that story. Or, I don't know, Kylo Ren takes, I know he's not in the Knights of Ren, but does he kill Grogu? Does Grogu go out on his own with Ahsoka? And that's where her show ties in. And again, that could be a time jump of Ahsoka finding out that her, Anakin's son is out there. I'm wondering, is that something they're going to explore when she kind of finds that sense of that Jedi being out there? So a lot to explore, but I would put my money on we get a time jump where Grogu is going to be trained by Luke, and he's going to be a badass Jedi, and we'll see what
Yeah.
comes of it in the future seasons. But also, I think this is a great way to, again, I know people love Grogu, he sells toys, but I think this is a great way to, again, separate us from the Mandalorian show, not really focusing on the cute, childish, kiddish moments. Good moments with Grogu, but I think this is kind of that time of kind of separating the story and really focusing on Din's storyline moving forward.
And that's the one instance where, like, I respect Filoni and Favreau for what they did. It could have been so easy to just like keep Grogu in the show and keep selling toys and making a whole bunch of money off of him, which I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll have like a kids show spinoff with Grogu where he's getting trained as a Jedi or something like that. Yeah. But they exercised restraint in that regard, and in that aspect, I am really happy. Although I will say it was. I was a little disappointed because I thought the show was going to go in the direction of, you know, Mando having to train Grogu and like your mentors coming from the unlikeliest of places. That's another reason why I don't like the Luke thing. I think it kind of goes against the thematic, you know, stuff that they had set up with Din and Baby Yoda, and like Baby Yoda like responding to the energy that Mando gave him, and like that sort of personal connection, and then also like deconstructing like the fact that you don't need to be a Jedi in order to train someone in the ways of the Force. Sometimes just like being a good mentor comes from, you know, your interactions with them and your personal experience. And I think that was something that Din learned in this season, in the series thus far. And then just like Luke comes in, like Deus Ex Machina, sweeps in, takes the kid, and he's like, "Well, I'm gonna train him, so I'll see you later." And so it was just like
that was the mission. That was the mission, though.
It was the mission, but it was also like it contradicted what they were setting up for Mando. And just as a person, I feel like he did grow. He learned a lot. He learned more about himself.
The helmet's off. We're going to see a lot of Pedro next season, I would imagine.
Exactly. I mean, like he took the helmet off, and that was an incredibly emotional moment, and I understand why, but I also just feel like, I don't know. It was a little disappointing that they went that route over like, you know, maybe, you know, another good way to bring in Luke could have been like when he goes to drop off Grogu at Luke, Luke sees that the child responds to Din's mentorship, and he says, you know, something. I mean, I'm paraphrasing or whatever, but he's like, maybe he's better off staying with you and learning what you can teach him and learning the ways of the Force. I don't know. It was just like something that had more imagination, that took more risks, that didn't rest on the same laurels that they've been doing since The Force Awakens. And I think that's where more of the frustration kind of comes from on my end.
No, I hear you. And I guess the only thing, so I guess, because we heard that with Ahsoka, you know, that would have been kind of, hearing Luke say the same thing that Ahsoka said, probably would have played in the same ballpark and just kind of been a little bit repetitive, I guess, in that sense. But yeah, I hear where you're coming from with the Luke's coming in and training him. But again, I just go back to, I guess, narratively speaking, from episode or very early on in season 1, the armorist telling him, you got to find his people, the Jedi, to, you know, chapters later, that is the end game, that is the end goal, and that's exactly what happened, right? I guess it was one of those conversations too in regards to, especially in the Star Wars universe, the obvious choice of Luke Skywalker being trained by, you know, Grogu being trained by him versus the, like you just mentioned, maybe some other creative ways of giving us a different story, but that's the story that we got. And I completely understand the execution. It could have, you know, been a little bit more thought out and maybe a little bit more creative in a sense, but you know, that's the story that Jon Favreau wanted us to see. Yeah.
Well, another thing that would have been, I almost would have preferred a little bit more is like, you know, maybe Ahsoka's the one who comes in and saves them. And not necessarily inferring that she's who Grogu was like communing with when he did the Force Skype, but like she comes in and she saves him, and she's like, listen, we like he has, you know, some knowledge of where to go to the master or whatever, the Jedi that he communed with, and like they both take him there. Ahsoka learns that Anakin Skywalker had a son, and now he's the Jedi, the legend. You know, we get a less action heavy Luke Skywalker. We don't even necessarily need to see his face, just like him sort of up there, and then the other character moments I was talking about earlier. So it's just, I think for me it comes down to execution, and I just was not a fan of the fan service that we got. It didn't work for me in that regard. But sorry, I know we
did put a
go
little
ahead.
pin in it too, with the Grogu thing, and going back to the before we get the fight between Moff Gideon and Mando. He mentions that I got everything I needed from the child. He got the blood. So again, are we again speculating, going back to Carl Weathers' episode with the experimenting of the clones, Snoke, Palpatine? Are we to assume that is something that we will approach again, or are we just flat out saying, yes, he has the blood, that's how we got Snoke, that's how Palpatine is able to rise in the Rise of Skywalker? Is that something that we can look forward to, or just assuming that that's the storyline?
I'd be okay with that, because I think that is that's an interesting thing, and it's sort of like going retroactively fixing everything that happened in the Rise of Skywalker. So I wouldn't be opposed to that. And I think we're definitely going to get more of that down the road, because now with Moff Gideon in custody, basically, they got to figure out what he's onto. You know, not only is he creating dark troopers, but there's some serious experimenting going on. And now that the scientist is also in their custody as well, I'm sure that we're going to get a lot more going on there. But the question is that something that then becomes the focus of the Rangers of the New Republic show, or do they continue that in The Mandalorian? Or do they do that in the Ahsoka series? Because we know that Ahsoka is going after Thrawn, and Thrawn, obviously being who he is, might be the guy who resurrects Palpatine. So I don't know. There's a lot of sort of like, okay, is that going to go in this show? Is this going to go in this show? What do you think?
Well, and again, this goes back to something that I think we all wish would have happened with the sequel trilogy, a plan. It seems like they have a plan in place. I think Kathleen Kennedy even said so much last week, where this is all culminating to an event level type of crossover event with Mando, Ahsoka, Bo-Katan, New Rangers of the Republic. So it sounds like to me that, maybe 2 years, 3 years from now, when we get all those 10 shows, that we're going to get some type of crossover event, whether it be a film on Disney Plus or whatever the case may be, all tying into Palpatine, Thrawn, and whatever that big bad villain may be. So again, this makes me happy, because it seems like Kathleen Kennedy, Jon Favreau, and all the wonderful creators, Dave Filoni, they've mapped out something that they should have done maybe 5 years ago, but it seems like they finally have a plan, and that's in the form of television.
Yeah, and you'll have all these interconnected shows that are like contributing to the overall story, which I know some people are getting a little tired of, shared universes and having to catch up with what's going on here or what's going on here. I think this is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be sort of like, you can pick and choose the stuff, but you'll still get the gist of what's going on and such. We do have a super chat in here, which thank you so much, Wave876. I really appreciate that. Also, guys, thank you so much for all the thoughts and opinions you're throwing into the chat. I am paying attention to it and trying to interact with you in there as I can, but thank you so much for the super chat here. Hey guys, do you think that they may retcon the new sequel trilogy and go a different route with Luke, Grogu, and other characters? Sebastian Stan for New Luke Skywalker, Elliott fan of Teacher Reviews.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I'll let you start with this one.
That is a really good question. So I know, and that's been brought up in the last year or so, and I don't know where this rumor came up from with the whole retconning Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker. Unfortunately, it is canon. Fortunately or unfortunately, who knows where the future lands, where people might come around to it like they did the prequels 10 years from now. But I don't see them retconning Luke's story of him, being in exile and being on that, his own planet. But I do think, retroactively speaking, as we talked about, how did they get Palpatine instead of for it being in a novel, and maybe people not even knowing about the novel, about that throwaway line that they put in the novel about how he came to be. They use the show to kind of explain that, and I can see maybe some character. I don't even know if to be honest with you, I don't know if we'll see Luke again in any form. I would imagine it's very tempting.
I really hope
very tempting for these creators to use Luke, but again, I don't know if we'll see him again. I think that's where you get the Ahsoka show. You get some other characters to focus on, but who knows, man? We might get that Luke Skywalker show with Sebastian Stan in that time period that we're kind of in now, before we see him again in Force Awakens, because it's 30 years. What has Luke been up to this whole time? Besides training Kylo Ren and everything going bad. But we know Disney, man, they love playing in that nostalgia lane. So
they do. They're not going to retcon a sequel trilogy. They didn't dump all that money into 3 movies and make back basically all of those movies or all that money just for nothing. You know, they're not going to pay attention to the fans' comments on that. They're just going to move forward and try and rationalize it the way they can.
I agree.
In the series. So that part I don't agree with. The part I do agree with on your end is the fact that I would have actually liked Sebastian Stan to play Luke Skywalker in this episode.
Same.
And I know that's the fan casty thing to say. And if they were going to go the route that they did, it just, I don't know, just get someone who looks like him, you know, don't do the deep fakes CGI crap because it didn't work. It just didn't.
Uncanny Valley, man. It looked bad. It did look bad. Even though I love that scene, it was just like, oh no. But
yeah, I mean, listen, and it doesn't have to be Sebastian Stan. It can be anyone. I think what Dr. Sleep showed is that you don't need to necessarily get someone who looks like the character or a CGI version of that character in order for the character to come back to life in some capacity. 100%. Jack Torrance in Dr. Sleep didn't look like Jack Nicholson, but you still felt the same emotions, weight, and impact because of the performance. And I'm blanking on the actor's name, but the guy from all of like Mike Flanagan's stuff, the performance he gave. And I think that's what it comes down to. If you get the right actor in there that can give that great performance, I think people will be willing to forgive the fact that maybe it's not a 1-for-1 lookalike. Because then otherwise you get these deep fakes, like crappy CGI things, and he looks like a video game character.
He does.
And we don't want that. Like, that's so frustrating. It's so frustrating.
Again, I hope that, and I'm a big fan of Luke Skywalker. He's one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite. But I do agree that I think that this was. They had it in the canon. They had it in the lineup to have him appear in this finale, and hopefully that's the last time we'll see Luke Skywalker. But if they do bring him back, like you said, recasting, finding a more creative way to bring him into the story, or again, just detach yourself from the Skywalker Star Wars. It's not Star Wars Skywalker's stories. It's just like we can finally get away from that. But again, I think some of those shows like Acolyte, Andor, and all those spinoffs will kind of get us in that new path, Rogue Squadron, all that stuff. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is that hopefully this can sort of allow us to move away from that now that they've had their fun and they've dipped into the same nostalgia well that they've done for the better part of 5 years or so. And whatnot. I don't know. I hope that this means that we don't get more of it, or if they're going to use it, they're going to do it sparingly. But then again, I don't know. We're getting like a Lando show. We're getting like all these other spinoffs, and so I'm just like, I don't know, man. I think what this show did, people are going to go ahead and shit on me in the comment section. I really don't care. But what this episode did is it retroactively made me like The Last Jedi. And I didn't like that. I haven't liked that movie since the day I saw it. I've always been against it. I've been like, I appreciate it for taking the risks that it does, but it didn't quite feel like Star Wars. And now that we're on the other side where they're not taking risks and they're just playing into nostalgia, I'm like, Star Wars didn't deserve Rian Johnson. Like he had a way of capturing the spirit of Star Wars, but moving the franchise forward in a direction that enhanced the characters, took chances, had balls, and because of the stupid backlash, now we're getting what we're getting. And you know what? To their credit, people are liking it. People are enjoying it, and I'm happy for you.
The fandom more so together than the new trilogies did.
Yeah. Like, listen, I'm glad that that's the case. I want to be able to talk about Star Wars in a positive sense, but I think that the route they had to take in order for that to happen is just so disappointing. Yeah. Maybe it's my own fault. Maybe I go into these things with like my expectations way too high, but at the same time, it's Star Wars. I want to be wowed. I want the storytelling to be pushing new boundaries and territories. Like I don't want it to turn into just another nostalgia machine. And unfortunately, it just feels like that's sort of the route that we're going in.
I hear. So to play devil's advocate, to your point, some way might say that it was maybe risky to have the audacity to bring this iconic, most powerful Jedi to a TV format show. So to play to that angle, some may say that might have been a risk. Again, it plays to the fandom, it plays to the fan service, but I'm still very shocked that Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, and of course Peyton Reed decided to bring in Luke Skywalker in the capacity that they did. So
I guess that's just where I guess you and I will differ on this. Is I was just like, it's too easy. They're gonna do it.
I guess, would you have preferred that, going back to Moff Gideon versus Din, if the episode would have ended like right around there instead of for giving us the back half, not even bringing us the Dark Troopers and all that stuff? Would that have been a good like finale there?
I would no, because I think it would have been a little unfulfilling. Would have been underwhelming.
Gotcha.
But like I was okay with the trajectory of where it was going, and like they were gonna have to fight off the Dark Troopers, and that could have been a really cool action set piece of getting all the Mandalorians together. Maybe Boba Fett comes back.
Not to cut you off, dude, that Terminator versus Din moment, that was so awesome. That was so awesome. Seeing Din trying to put him on fire and all that. That reminded me of like Civil War when they had all the Bucky, the soldiers, and we never saw them because Benzino took them all out. But that reminded me, like seeing that fight, seeing the Terminator versus Din, that was so awesome. I love that moment.
That was really cool. That was sort of a nice tip of the hat to Cameron and all this stuff there. And when he keeps getting punched in the helmet, I was just like, oh my god, that's so awesome. Yeah, it was brutal. No, but that was cool. And so like seeing, the lengths that Din had to go to stop one of those guys. It's like now having to fight an entire legion. I don't know. I feel like it would have been more powerful, and it would have, kind of strengthened what it means to be a Mandalorian if all of the Mandalorians had to team up and fight those guys. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Maybe Boba Fett comes back or whatever because he realizes that they're in help or something. I don't know. Like there's just so many different ways you could have gone other than Luke Skywalker. But I was okay with the direction it was going outside of Luke Skywalker stuff. And I think, maybe finding a way to sort of wrap it up in a different capacity would have been, I would have been okay with, but.
Gotcha. I think the Wave gave you another super chat here. I think I saw him now.
Oh, is there another one in there that I missed? Okay. Thank you, Wave. Really, really appreciate it, man. He's saying, should we get Old Republic movies to unite fans? I mean, they're kind of already doing that with like the High Republic stuff that they're working on. I don't know if an Old Republic movie is going to unite people. I mean, it'll get people excited because it's different. It's a period of time that we haven't seen at all on the big screen or in television. And I think the Acolyte is going to go sort of in that direction. But I don't know, Elliott, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the rumor for the Game of Thrones creator. That was going to be like their trilogy before they got canned, that they want to dive into the Old Republic and dive into those games, which are so incredible. But yeah, I think like you just mentioned, the Acolyte's going to kind of serve as that appetizer for audiences to kind of get an idea of where the Sith come from, where the dark side comes from, and kind of get an understanding from that. But who knows? Again, we still know what the storyline, and I know Kathleen Kennedy said Taika Waititi's film is going to be completely new, completely fresh, but who knows what they explore with that series. But I think right now, in regards to the second half, to uniting the fans, I think we said so much true a couple minutes ago. I think the fandom's pretty strong right now. I think the fandom hasn't been this strong since the acquisition of Disney acquiring the Star Wars Lucasfilm. So I think right now the fandom is at a pretty good point, a la the reason we're getting 10 shows and 2 movies in the next 3 years. So I think now we're riding on a much higher note than we were in 2017 and definitely by last year.
Yeah, for sure. And there was someone in the chat here who said something really interesting about, if we had gotten the action scene where all the Mandalorians had to fight off the Dark Troopers, they have a dark saber. They could have cut through them, man. Like they had the capacity to do so. Yeah. So that would have been a badass, like Avengers style team up, sort of like climactic set piece. Like, man, now I'm just wishing that I got more.
Speaking of badass, I do love the organic nature of all of the women of the show having that moment of just taking out all the troopers and not being like so in your face like we got with Endgame. I think that really kind of speaks to the positive aspect of the show of at that point in time, Frennic's a badass character. We haven't got a full backstory. Maybe that's where the book of Boba Fett comes in.
Right.
Cara Dune, seeing her from last year to where she's at now, as well as, Bo-Katan and Sasha Banks' character, whose name is slipping right now. But that was just like a really cool moment too, and just felt organic to what was going on versus it being like forced. Hey, the women of Star Wars. I thought they handled that really well.
I 100% agree. That was something that I was like, it was something that I hadn't really thought about until I started to see that like everyone around Din was a really strong female character, and I was like,
yeah,
oh, this is great. Like it's so nuanced. It just sort of happened organically that way. It didn't shove it in your face, and I'm like, that's good. That's good writing. And so yeah, of course, like I was definitely on board for all of that. But all right, I think we have talked this episode to death. There's so many other theories and directions, we could go in just, in terms of speculation, but ultimately, Elliott, what are your final thoughts on this episode? Were you satisfied?
I was, man. Peyton Reed to me really stepped up from his chapter 10, The Passenger, and really kind of goes to the trend when you are a Mandalorian first time outing. Some of them have home runs, some of them have singles. I think when you get the second and third episode, like we get with Rick Famuyiwa, Bryce Dallas Howard, they tend to kind of give you a little bit more meat on the bone. I thought Peyton Reed did a good job in directing this episode. And as a whole, like I said, I've seen it twice. I'm going to probably the next week or so, especially before the new year, I'm going to watch this entire season as a cinematic movie to really see what episodes stood out, what really connected to me. But I think as a whole, this is not only a satisfying finale, it concluded a great story, then, delivered the child to a Jedi and Luke Skywalker. And now the future of the Mandalorian, whether it be Boba Fett season 3 with the book of Boba Fett, whether we tie into this whole dilemma of Bo-Katan and the Darksaber in season 3, whether we find out where the blood went and things of that nature. I think it sets up a really interesting future seasons of this show. And just as a whole, I thought that this season to me was just from top to bottom, minus episode 2, chapter 10, was a fantastic episode, or a fantastic season as a whole.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm definitely while I. Okay, let's put it this way. I wasn't the biggest fan of The Mandalorian season 1 because it underwhelmed me. I think I was much more of a fan of this season, but it was still very hit or miss for me. It was like up and down every other week. But the highs were incredibly high. Yes, and so like I have to say that this season as a whole, I think was satisfying, even with the stuff that I didn't like. I just think that my biggest problem came down to nostalgia and backdoor pilots for each episode, which this series definitely kind of fell victim to as it went on throughout this season. But when it came to play with the emotions in that final episode and those final moments between Din and Grogu, Pedro Pascal really just showed how great of an actor he was. And for me, at least, saved the episode and brought it back to what the story has always been about. And I think it left the door open for a really interesting, continuation of this story with Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon and like what's going to sort of happen there. Yeah. I'm not crazy about the Boba Fett spinoff. I've never been crazy about the Boba Fett spinoff, but let's see what'll happen there. Yeah. Just in terms of this episode, you all already know how I feel about the Luke Skywalker stuff, so I'm not going to beat you over the head with that, but I hated it. But minus that, it was a very, very well-directed episode. Peyton Reed definitely, redeemed himself from that weird, I don't even know what the hell that was, that fever dream of an episode earlier on.
Side mission that just we wish we'd never. When I rewatch it, maybe it'll play better when I rewatch it again, because I've only seen that episode once. But that was a strange episode, man. And it speaks to, again, going back to the strength of Star Wars and television, like you just mentioned, hot and cold. I love this episode, not a big fan. Like this episode, not a big fan of the next. That's a much better back and forth versus a movie type of situation where we get a film, and if we don't like the film, we have to wait 2 to 3 years before we get a next film. And that's where the fandom kind of tears apart, tears each other up. So I love that we get this kind of 1 week is cold, 1 week is hot. And maybe next season, Griff, you'll love the entire show. Flat out, this great episode week after week.
Hey, listen, if next season is all Boba Fett, I don't know if that's gonna happen, man. I think
Boba Fett and Patty Mills coming to a TV near you.
Dude, I hate being on the opposite side of this because I really wish that I was enjoying what you all are loving so much. But I think the thing that excites me is just like the people are excited about Star Wars, that they're like crying over it, they're being happy about it and stuff. And so it's like I'm glad for you all. You know, if this is what it takes to get people happy, fine. I still wish that the Star Wars had more, meat on the bones other than just like, we're bringing this character back from the original trilogy. But anyways, guys, let us know your thoughts and opinions on the season 2 finale, chapter 16, The Mandalorian season 2, episode 8, whatever you want to call it, down in the comment section below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What are your thoughts and theories for what the show is going to be going forward? Are we getting Boba Fett for season 3, or is that going to be its own spinoff? Let's have a great conversation down in the comment section below. Before I throw it over to you, Elliott, I just want to thank you all for joining us every week to discuss The Mandalorian on Friday. It's been great paying attention to the chat here and interacting with you all live. You guys bring some great insight and enthusiasm to this. And so we have had an absolute blast covering this show, and we're going to definitely do it again when the next season starts up. So definitely stick around, like this video, share with your Mandalorian loving friends, and stay subscribed to the FilmSpeak channel for more TV talk, movie reviews, Mandalorian discourse when the show starts back up. Elliott, thank you so much for joining me each and every week. Where can everyone find you?
Hey, man, Griffin, just like our recaps of Lovecraft Country, man, I always love talking TV and movies with you, man. So thank you for having me on. And also, too, I forgot to mention earlier, rest in peace to Jeremy Bullock, who was the original Boba Fett, passed away at 75. If it wasn't for him being Boba Fett, we would have never gotten a Mandalorian nor a Boba Fett spinoff series. So rest in peace to him. But yeah, man, every single week, I always enjoy these conversations with you, man. So I'm looking forward to the next time we get to discuss some TV, which, we got a lot of good stuff coming pretty soon with WandaVision and all that fun stuff. Marvel, so right around the corner, man. Disney is just hitting us with the content, man. They can't stop, won't stop. So, but again, man, thank you for having me on every single week. And guys, you can find me here on YouTube at Movie Files, and on Instagram at Movie Files, and on Twitter at Movie Files Live. You all have a great holiday and a happy New Year.
Yes, definitely. Ditto from me as well. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. I hope you have a phenomenal one. And then if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, guys, thank you all for tuning into this review of The Mandalorian Season 2 finale. And we will catch you back here next season. Take care.